What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping back in with some content updates for the game this week. Of course, we've got the weekly reset for the 25th of March, which will be the final week of Guardian games for the year, as well as the last week for Act 2 of Heresy. So there are some things to touch on there. We'll also probably get a bit more information about Act 3 this week. Bungie showed off some of the content in their live stream a few weeks ago, but we know there are additional components for Act 3 that we'll probably get reveals for. Otherwise though, there's also a game update this week, so we'll touch on some of the changes there, the downtime. Hopefully that won't lead to major server issues later on. Plus we'll touch on some featured activity stuff, heads up from Bungie on a couple of items and a few other things in the video. So if you guys do find the video useful, feel free to get subscribed to the channel as that would really help us out, but otherwise let's get into it. So ahead of the weekly reset today, one thing to keep in mind, we are getting another update. This will be update 8252, and Bungie have said all Bungie.net services will be offline today, including the Destiny 2 API. So the downtime should begin at around 7:45 AM Pacific, and is expected to end at 10 AM, so just over 2 hours of downtime, and then we should get the patch itself drop in. Hopefully, it'll be a bit of a smoother week versus some of the server issues we've seen recently again, but we'll have to wait and see exactly how that pans out. In terms of the changes in the update today though, we know there are a couple which will affect Crucible, and Bungie have said in update 8252 we'll be increasing the number of points that the skill delta modifier can grant you on wins and losses on a more exponential scale, and only in ways that positively affect players. So they've said you'll no longer have your points reduced if you beat a team that you were supposed to beat, but you'll get bonus points if you beat a team that you were expected to lose to, and on the flip side, you'll no longer lose more points for losing to a team that you might have been favored against, but you will lose less points for losing to a team that you were expected to lose to. This will help offset some of the confusion around points gains and losses in close games. And while this baseline win and loss amount will remain centered around 100, following the update today, the new maximum and minimum point gains and losses are as follows. So the maximum win amount is 190 points gained, the minimum win amount will be 90 gained, and the maximum loss amount will be 110 lost, with the minimum loss being 10. They've also said there's been a bug with solo versus fireteam loss forgiveness in the game, so in the update today, there is a more robust code fix that they believe will cut down the amount of failures with the loss forgiveness protection in general. They say once it's been verified, they'll continue with their plans to reduce the stratification utilized by fireteam matchmaking and allow duos and trios to match each other in both comp and trials. So all a bit technical really on those 2 points with regards to scoring and skill points in the Crucible. Otherwise, they say as well there's been a bug for players that have been granted the competitive contender emblem during Bungie's Rushdown Roulette event that they've been running with certain creators. And that should also be fixed in the update today. So if you were granted one of those emblems and it didn't work, Bungie have said you should now be able to see the emblem in collections as intended. Otherwise, I'm sure there are going to be additional patch notes, bug fixes for Heresy content and things like that, so I'll keep you posted when we get the full patch details later on. Then moving into more of the content focused stuff this week, more PvP things, briefly. Bungie have said they'll introduce a slow capture collision variant available in the small team quick play playlist. So this will be available in the Crucible this week. The rules are simple. They say zones take longer to capture and rotate immediately once they've been capped. On top of that, standing in the zone is the only way to gain progress towards the capture, and the first team to 7 captures will win. They say if this variant is preferred to the fast capture mode, then they'll look to swap them out in the future. Otherwise, momentum control will also be back in the Crucible this week for any players looking for more weapon-focused combat. And as always, we will see the return of Trials this weekend. Keep in mind, Trials actually won't be around next week, as we'll have the return of Iron Banner on the first week of Act 3, so another little heads up there if you've been looking for Iron Banner. It'll drop on the next weekly reset, which is the 1st of April. But for Trials this week, they've said they'll be trying something new with a map that hasn't been featured in Trials. Curious to see what that will be. And as for the featured reward, it'll be Sheora's Wrath. So that's all of the updates and PvP focused stuff coming up this week. Otherwise though, for the Heresy side of things, as we mentioned, this is the final week of Act 2. So we'll have the challenge to complete the final set of quest steps, Act 2 Part 3 of Rites of the Deep. Plus there'll be a seasonal challenge that drops the masterworked version of the Mirror Imago SMG this week. And we'll get another Curio of the Nine for rapid Court of Blades defeats on one of those challenges. And in terms of the final set of story drops for this week, it looks like the steps themselves will be fairly quick this time around, so there'll be a step to head back into the Nether, and outside of that, it's probably going to be vendor dialogue and maybe a cutscene if we're lucky, so it will be a reasonably light week, but next week the story will continue pretty much immediately as we head into Act 3, where we're anticipating another 3 weeks of story steps. And of course, the overall conclusion to the Heresy story, more than likely. So we've got that to look forward to. In terms of Act 3 content, Bungie have spoken about Rights of the Nine. That will actually be later on in Act 3, so I don't believe we should anticipate it next week, but Sunless Cell will return next week, which will be interesting. We know that that will also be a Grandmaster Nightfall, so kind of hoping Bungie will bring back Lotus Eater as the Nightfall weapon alongside that. Otherwise, I think there'll be some additional updates to the Dreadnought next week. We'll get more Barrow Dyad catalysts as well. I don't think we're going to get another one with the reset this week. A lot of players are still working on getting the second one, considering we need rank 12 at the Shaping Slab on the new ambition path. So we'll see how all of that pans out, but in terms of more specific details for Act 3, more than likely, Bungie will give us at least a few heads up with the blog post update on Thursday, so I will keep you up to date with that when we get it. Otherwise, I should mention, it is the final week of Guardian Games, and as players have pointed out, with the amount of days that Titans have won, and of course second in line are Hunters, that does mean that Warlocks are officially out of the race for Guardian Games 2025, so basically impossible for Warlocks to win at this point. And as we've seen many times, Guardian Games is heavily dictated by the meta at any given time. I feel like we're going to need a Warlock Appreciation Day after this. But when it comes to rewards, if you want to pick up anything related to Guardian Games, this final few days will be the time to do it, as otherwise it'll go away until 2026 presumably. So keep that in mind. And the final thing is that Bungie are dropping their account linking update today, where it will no longer be possible to unlink accounts from your Bungie.net account. So we've spoken about this before. I'll link a help article down below. There may be just enough time at the point this video goes live if anyone does want to unlink accounts from their Bungie.net profile, but thought it was worth a very quick mention at the end of the video. For today, that is what we have to speak about, so I'll keep you posted with the revelations through the week. This is a relatively quiet reset, really, but the attention certainly will turn to Act 3 in the coming days, so keep it locked and loaded here on the channel and I'll keep you guys posted. If you found the video helpful, a rating really does help us out. Otherwise though, I appreciate you tuning in and I hope you guys have an awesome day.
I formed my throne with the stroke of a sword, as the Hive Gods did long ago. Their tribute and blood coalesced into worlds. You have seen Oryx's throne, his dreadnought, his court, what he called the High Wall. Here, the memory of the Taken King recognizes his equal, his killer, his heir, you. But his sisters will come to claim him as brother and as instrument of power. Zero Arath was sundered from her throne as she was sundered from her siblings. She would retake it all and return to their path of death and conquest. While Savathun in her high coven, having claimed the light, wishes to escape. Both the vows made to the worms and the lie that drove the siblings to that bargain. Designs will be unmade. Their desires, their undoing. I name my throne the High Heresy, formed in opposition to the Hive. Here I am Heresiarch. Here I am Jailer. For my throne will be Oryx's prison.